Hello and welcome. This is TVC News Hour featuring Sunday specials. I am Esther Mokwariola. The top stories. Lone gunman kills more than 20 at a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. Police and members of the Islamic movement in Nigeria clash in Kano with unclear report about casualty. Cattle Breeders Association wants federal government, lawmakers and international community to convince Benue State to reverse anti-open grazing law. In sports, Chelsea, Man City win big on Super Sunday in English Premier League. And in our Sunday specials tonight, we ask the question, when will Boko Haram be completely defeated? Details just ahead. We begin the news now in the United States, where a gunman opened fire at a church in Texas, leaving up to 27 people dead. The incident took place at a First Baptist church in Sutherland Springs, a small community southeast of San Antonio. Witnesses say a man walked into the church at around 11:30 a.m. local time. The shooter is now believed to be dead. Unconfirmed reports on the social media claim that more than a dozen people have been injured during the shooting, though it isn't clear yet how serious their injuries are. Wilson County, Texas Commissioner says investigation is ongoing on the details at the moment. We'll bring you more updates on that story as developments unfold. Well, 2 persons are reported dead after police clashed with members of the Islamic movement of Nigeria, also known as Shiites, in Kano State. Some media reports say a leader of the Shia sect and a female member of the sect were killed by mobile policemen, but the police deny any fatality. The fracas started after police intercepted a trek of the group in the town. The Shiites say officers fired live bullets, but the police say they only used tear gas. Many people sustained injuries in the incident. The Association of Herdsmen in Nigeria wants the federal government and lawmakers to prevail on the Benue State government to reverse its anti-grazing law. The Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria also wants the international community to intervene. The chairman of the association, Danladi Shiroma, says the law was implemented without consultation with the herdsmen. Shiroma claims his people need more time and education to understand how to operate modern ranches. Last week, Benue State banned open grazing due to regular clashes between herdsmen and landowners. The national coordinator of Benue Youth Forum, Terence Kwanam, was on the news earlier today, and he says there is an agreement for clinics and other provisions for the herdsmen.
We have had interactions with them, with the farmers, with the stakeholders, and with the Miati people. We have made provisions of the law bear to them, but they have still insisted that we should make provisions for certain things before they obey the law. And then we keep wondering how they move with these cattle in the bush, where they get the nomadic schools, where they get the veterinary doctors, and the rest to be able to take care of their cattle. We felt that the state government has agreed to make provisions for these nomadic schools and make provisions for the livestock doctors for them where there are ranches. They can open the veterinary clinics in the senatorial zones where there are ranches, and anybody that is ranching within the senatorial zone can be able to access these things properly. But they have refused that they must see these nomadic schools within the ranches they have not even acquired.
Primate and founder of Christ Living Church in Akure, Ondo State capital, Apostle Sunday Ojuolakpe, says President Buhari needs to dialogue with the Niger Delta Avengers. The clergyman gave the advice at a special service to mark the church's adult harvest celebration.
The ones spending the money and the people that belongs to the land, they are suffering in silence. It's not the best and it's not good. Let the federal government see to this and do something positive quickly before it is too late. Where there are supposed to be peace, let there be peace. Where there are supposed to be protests that will satisfy the poor masses, let the federal government go with it. That's the only way in which we can avert what we call civil war again. Because where we are having the income of the nation and they are suffering there.
The chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria in Lagos State, Apostle Alexander Bangbola, says lack of proper education is denying the country of good governance and leaders. Apostle Bangbola advises religious bodies and the government to educate rightly, while other speakers also proposed a collaboration between religious bodies and the governments to boost education in the country.
People who are not educated are not a people. A nation that is not educated is not a nation. A nation where education is being destroyed, that nation is being destroyed. That's what we've done to this nation in the last 30, 40 years. Everything going down. As education is going down, the nation has been going down. And we began to raise criminals, even to rule us. So, unless we all rethink and have a paradigm shift and move to education, to educate the old, the young, educate particularly our children.
Instead of just a routine church services, a routine praise night, a routine people saying that they want something that will cure their earthly problems. I have said it, the earthly problems cannot evaporate. It can only be till a man enters the grave, your earthly problems will be there. What we need now is how do we assist the less privileged?
To give scholarship to this, the church can initiate it, the government can also initiate it, and so it will then be a joint venture. So particularly, and then secondly, the funding of the institutions. But the problem is the state, the government, is not sincere enough to say this is our limit. They can say, okay, we want churches to help us, we want mosques to help us.
In the universities now, most VCs have to rely on the internally generated fund to augment salaries and so many other things like that. If you get to our laboratories in the university, there are nothing to write home about. Reagents are not there, dilapidated structures, everything is just going down the drain, you know.
The Nigerian Air Force has launched a modern-day aircraft into its arsenal to increase air power, surveillance and fighting capabilities. This is to enhance search and rescue operations and quick response to emergency situations and to assist ground troops in the ongoing war. And TVC News' Kolomi Dala, who was at the maiden launch of the aircraft in Maiduguri, filed in this report.
It's a simulated exercise where these Air Force personnel display their expertise. Insurgents had invaded their territory and were out to take people hostage. But the Air Force personnel gave them a run for their money. With air support, they took charge and recaptured all that was once lost to the enemies.
We have in the last 2 years been building capacity in this particular area to ensure that we have what it takes to protect our bases and ensure that the assets that have been entrusted into our hands are really protected.
Military bases and security of assets has been an area that has been of concern. The senior Air Force officers say never again will enemies of Nigeria steal from its arsenal.
It's part of a 5-year plan to train twice a year the Nigerian Air Force Regiment to create a bespoke force for a bespoke task, and that bespoke task is to look after air assets and Nigerian Air Force bases, and indeed they could be used to look after international airports.
Whatever we're seeing here is translating into more security for our bases and by extension more security for our communities and more security for Nigeria and Nigerians.
The partnership with the Britons has sharpened and built needed capacity for their Nigerian counterparts. It's a move officers and men of the Nigerian Air Force say will be consolidated upon. They promise to also transfer the knowledge shared with other personnel.
Well, that was a report by our correspondent Tessem Akinde and not as earlier stated by Kolomi Dala. Well, now here is a story from our correspondent in Maiduguri who sent in the report concerning the Nigerian Air Force launch of a modern-day aircraft into its arsenal to increase air power, surveillance and fighting capabilities.
The ceremony was held at the tarmac of the 105 Composite Group Air Base in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. It is one of a series of the newly acquired aircraft by the Nigerian Air Force, which is expected to increase latitude in the air surveillance and liaison within the theater of operations in the northeast of Nigerian code name Operation Lafia Dole. The Bell 412 helicopter is equipped with the state-of-the-art equipment fixed with a camera for night and day surveillance, search and rescue, haulage of cargo, and can serve as a passenger aircraft to ground troops. Air Vice Marshal Nuruddin Balogun is the Nigerian Air Force Chief of Operations and Training at the headquarters. He inaugurated the sophisticated aircraft and shares with TVC News its capabilities.
It gives us more latitude to operate. It has increased our air power capacity in terms of surveillance, in terms of liaison, and in terms of operational flexibility.
He is optimistic that the aircraft will be properly maintained by the highly trained Nigerian Air Force technicians.
2 of them were handed over to us. 1 was maintained and the other one is still undergoing maintenance. As soon as the maintenance is completed, it will also join up here, apart from the other airplanes that we are expecting. As they become available, they will be inducted into the operations area.
These aircraft would greatly enhance the fighting efficiency of the Nigerian Air Force in its combat support role to the ground troops who need air intelligence that this type of aircraft can provide to combat the insurgents.
Still to come on the news hour.
I want to drop. Lifeless objects drop, but a human being cannot drop from a vehicle except he is shot.
A professor writes a book to teach us how to speak English better. Also coming up,
no nation succeeds across the world without young people driving political and economic development.
Not Too Young to Run group reminds us about the need to have young people in government come 2019. We've got that after this break. Lagos State Governor Akinwumi Ambode has inaugurated 3 boats for official use. This is to promote the use of Lagos inland waterways, encourage sustainable investments and develop water transportation in the state. Correspondent Adedoja Salam Adeniyi reports.
25% of Lagos is water. The need to further encourage its usefulness is very paramount, and that is why the Lagos State government is inaugurating the 3 boats for official use.
We've discovered that sometimes we do not have the ability for our officials to go on the waterways to actually address issues that relate to people or relate to citizens that actually live alongside the waterways. And it's important that we put in the right perspective the economy that we can actually make to thrive on our waterways and the people living along the waterways, to bring them into proper perspective.
Governor Ambode and his commissioners also reiterated government's commitment to the integrated transport system in the state, as well as safety of lives and property.
We're so particular about safety, we're so particular about the future of everyone, and that's why we've decided also that we'll do a lot on channelization and the dredging of the waterways to make it more tolerable. At the end of the first quarter of 2018, and we believe strongly also that our own boats by government and the ones from the private sector will start to bed the waterways of Lagos, and we'll be able to use that to complement what it is that we have on our roads, and then we'll be able to use it to complement the future of what we are trying to plan for the rail system.
The state has identified right now, currently, 30 water routes. They'll be lated so you can see your direction. There will be security, there will be equipment on the waterway to gather all the data, the condition of the water, the depth, so as to minimize accidents.
What you've seen today are just about 4 of the luxury boats that the state owns, but there is about seven more that are coming that will be for mass passengers. So it's a demonstration of the commitment of His Excellency to water transportation and to the boost in tourism that we expect in 2018.
When an incident occurs on the waterways, there's a jet ski that will move divers fast to the incident scene while the rescue boats are coming behind.
Now it's time for inspection. For 1.5 hours on water, Governor Ambode and his team inspected the ongoing channelization of the waterways and upgrade of jetties. From Ozumba Mbadiwe via Orange Island, the governor toured the Lekki foreshore.
Out of 24 million people living in Lagos, only 2 million Lagosians commute via the waterways. The remaining 22 million use the road, thereby causing human and vehicular traffic. This tour is to create awareness on the safety of the Lagos inland waterways and to increase the number of people using it. Adedoja Salam Adeniyi, TVC News, Lagos.
The convener of the Not Too Young to Run movement, Samson Itudu, wants everyone to know that young people have what it takes to run for political office in 2019. Itudu says Nigeria's progress is dependent on young, competent and transparent leaders taking office.
It's important that we recognize the value that young people bring to the table. The second critical point, when we talk about Not Too Young to Run and youth participation, it's not going to be an all-comers affair. It's for young people who have the capacity, who have what it takes to hold such offices. My dream is to see a country where we've got a competent young person who understands policy making, taking critical governance decisions. Because what we see today is not the dream that we all had for a country. There are studies that have shown, the NOI released a report recently, that a larger percentage of Nigerians' population think we want a younger president in 2019. And so we are also claiming, and we lay claim to that fact, that you need to get young people. If we get a young, competent, capable, and responsive and transparent president, then we will move Nigeria from a developing nation or an underdeveloped nation to a developed nation. But no nation succeeds across the world without young people driving political and economic development.
The university Dawn is trying to keep spoken and written English clean in Nigeria. At the public presentation and launch of a book, Keeping Language Clean, Professor Nkem Oko of the University of Port Harcourt highlighted common grammatical errors we make every day.
The Epitome Banigo Auditorium was the venue for the public presentation and launch of a book, Keeping Language Clean, a guide to usage and grammar in English, by Professor Nkem Oko of the Department of English Studies. The program, attended by Professors Emeriti Samuel Okiwelu and Ebigberi Alagwa, triggers the question if language can be dirty.
Somebody can say that your language is dirty, but that's not my own coinage. People say you write an exam, you don't do that. In Nigeria, for example, you say you can't eat your cake and have it. That's wrong. It's just because people don't know the correct thing. Then on the cover there, you have this expression in the church. People say every forces of darkness. I won't call it dirty, it's just that people are not knowledgeable. Then sometimes people say, let us praise God, call him names. Calling names grammatically is different from what they have in mind.
Grammatical infelicities, such as I want to drop, lifeless objects drop, but a human being cannot drop from a vehicle except he is shot. So you could say, could you stop, let me calm down, or let me alight. I could also give another example of burst, busted, that's dirty language, because the past tense of burst is burst, not busted.
We unveiled this great publication.
The Vice Chancellor of the University of Port Harcourt, Professor Ndowa Lale, launched the book, while guests at the public presentation speak on its importance to the speech community.
It's important to know the registers of words and how to use words, because if you use words inappropriately, you're bound to cause confusion amongst the listeners, and then there will be communication gap.
Consciously injecting to every school system qualified English teachers or linguists who can teach the course very well. Speaking good English or good usage means that they're doing it perfectly, and to keep it clean means that you have to be healthy.
Your book will help us. Since it's a University of Port Harcourt Press book, I hope the management of the university will get in a marketing company so that the book will go across the country. We have to improve our language.
English, written or spoken, is second language in Nigeria and must be kept in its pure form for articulate and effective communication. Ofietime George, TVC News, Port Harcourt, Rivers State.
Nigerian Institute of Architects says the country needs to have policies that incorporate traditional architecture into formal learning so as to cause a cultural renaissance. National President of the Institute disclosed this in Katsina State, where he led the leadership of the body to confer honors on a notable traditional architect. And TVC News Katsina correspondent Awal Ibrahim reports.
The Sarkin Zanen Katsina Kabir Idris is one of Nigeria's finest traditional architects, with works that have been appreciated in different parts of the world. He also specializes in Arabic calligraphy. On this day, the Nigerian Institute of Architects, led by its national president Tony Bride, is in Katsina to honor Idris with an investiture as an honorary fellow.
For us to bring out the case, we hope this will open the doors of Katsina to the world.
The architects pleaded with the Katsina State government to support a special project to catalogue the works of Sarkin Zane Idris, which will then be showcased around the world through a traveling exhibition that will boost investments on the rich cultural heritage of Katsina.
The Sarkin Zane Katsina has been very phenomenal in his works, and we believe that in honoring him, we are bringing into focus this style of art, this style of sculptural work, and ornamental art that he puts on his buildings, which makes his buildings very, very definitely Katsinan.
The Sarkin Zane Katsina feels elated on this rare honor, while calling on fellow traditional architects to modernize their talents.
You can see that all designs now that are being produced, buildings, are only copying the foreign cultures. Only those that are restored in our country are reflecting our culture. And that is where I feel sorry to us. We need to at least recreate our culture so that all these housing estates and all these buildings you see, we can make greater ones.
The Katsina State government later charged traditional architects to explore and adopt the use of locally sourced materials for modern architecture.
Locally materials we have in our domain so that we can use as substitutes towards realizing shelters, which we believe we have deficits not only here in Katsina State.
Chairman of the Katsina State chapter of the association expressed appreciation for the honor and says in the near future there would be more fellows from the chapter.
Without any prejudice, our chapter is poised to have an array of fellows far beyond what we collectively bargained for when we go to the BGM on the 24th of November. There will be more fellows from Katsina chapter than any other chapter in Nigeria.
This cultural entertainment added color to the occasion. Awal Ibrahim, TVC News, Katsina.
Still to come on the news hour.
Beat down as Piliqueta. Chelsea have beaten down United's door.
Chelsea, Man City win big on Super Sunday in English Premier League. We have details in just a moment.
They've done exactly that. Game on again.
Zamfara state government has employed about 60 midwives to be posted to all secondary healthcare facilities in the state. The employment of more nurses and doctors are also underway. TVC News correspondent Ibrahim Bello reports now from Gusau.
Some development partners recently rated Zamfara state low in terms of manpower and facilities in the health sector, especially in areas related to shortage of medical doctors, nurses and midwives in public health institutions. To restore confidence in the health sector, the Zamfara state government has recruited 60 midwives to bridge the gap in manpower shortage in the state secondary healthcare facilities. Muhammad Dansado is the secretary of the Hospital Service Management Board.
I know not only Zamfara state, this problem of human resource or manpower deficiency is not peculiar to Zamfara state alone. It's all over. We're even better off compared to other states. So we feel what we have is not enough. And His Excellency, the Executive Governor, Dr. Abdulaziz Yari Abubakar, out of his magnanimous, stand, he decided that we should recruit more human resource on health.
Dansado also dismissed reports that Zamfara state has less than 20 medical doctors working in the 24 general hospitals in the state.
Most of the news are not verifiable. Instead of somebody to get to the root of the matter, for example, nobody has come to the board to find out our data of human resource. But we have been hearing such rumors and insinuation going on in the country that we have, Zamfara state has 23 doctors to man 24 hospitals. This is not true. This is not true. I think people are not being fair to the state, those who are circulating these rumors.
The newly recruited midwives expressed their readiness to serve the people while appreciating the government of Zamfara state.
Really appreciate this what government did for us. Thank you so much for our governor. We pray for him to finish his tenure in a successful and have a successful life.
Really happy to come here today to collect my letter of appointment. We really appreciate Zamfara State Governor Abdulaziz Yari Abubakar.
We are just dumped at home, nothing. Now we are very happy since we have been given letter of offer and posting. We are very happy. We really appreciate. And
the Zamfara state government says it is set to revamp its healthcare sector with increased investment in personnel and infrastructure so as to boost human development. Ibrahim Bello, TVC News, Gusau, Zamfara State.
A Belgian judge will decide on Monday Spain's arrest warrant for 5 Catalonia's sacked leaders who turned themselves into the Belgian police. Catalan deposed President Carles Puigdemont and 4 other leaders of the region handed themselves in on Sunday. This is 2 days after Spain handed Belgian prosecutors a warrant for rebellion, sedition, misuse of public funds, disobedience and breach of trust relating to Catalonia's independence campaign for the 5. Well, this next story contains a flash photography. A nephew of Saudi Arabia king, other royals, ministers and investors have been arrested in what watchers say is the Saudi monarch's tightening of his grip on power. The nephew, billionaire investor Al-Walid bin Talal, is one of the kingdom's most prominent businessmen. He is among 11 princes, 4 ministers and tens of former ministers detained in an anti-corruption purge that also targeted the head of the National Guard, Prince Miteb bin Abdullah. News of the action came after King Salman decreed the creation of an anti-corruption committee chaired by his 32-year-old son, Crown Prince Mohammed. Sports news now. Premier League leaders Manchester City continued their blistering form with a 3-1 victory over Arsenal at the Etihad Stadium. Kevin De Bruyne netted the opener with a low left-footed effort from 16 yards. Sergio Aguero made it 2-0 from the penalty spot 10 minutes into the second half after Raheem Sterling was shoved in the box by Nacho Monreal. And substitute Alexander Lacazette halved the deficit with a low drive through Ederson's legs. But City regained their 2-goal lead through their own sub, Gabriel Jesus, despite David Silva being in an offside position before crossing. Well, the result means City are now unbeaten in 23 games in all competitions, while Arsenal dropped down to 6th place, 12 points off the leaders. Manchester United have now fallen 8 points behind league leaders City after losing 1-0 at Chelsea. Alvaro Morata headed home Cesar Archipeleta's cross in the 55th minute. And Chelsea closed to within 9 points of the leaders and calmed the pressure on Antonio Conte. Tottenham Hotspur beat Crystal Palace 1-0 at Wembley. South Korea forward Heung-min Son scored the winner. Elsewhere, Everton came back from 2 goals down to beat Watford 3-2 in a dramatic contest at Goodison Park. Nigeria's Falconets played a 1-1 draw with Morocco in the second round of the 2018 FIFA Under-20s Women World Cup qualifier in Casablanca. The Falconets will take a goal advantage going into the return leg in the fortnight. The FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup will hold in France from 5th of August to 24th of next year. Midfielder Genyo Onazi is a major doubt for Nigeria's upcoming matches after suffering a knock while playing for Turkish side Trabzonspor on Saturday. Onazi succumbed to a groin injury in Trabzonspor goalless draw, Super League draw away to Kayserispor. He was replaced in the 41st minute and is now set to undergo further medical tests to determine the severity of his injury. Well, this puts the 24-year-old in a major doubt for Nigeria's final 2018 World Cup qualifier away to Algeria on November the 10th, as well as the friendly against Argentina 4 days later. Nigerian coach Genatroa is already without Odione Gallo and Victor Moses, while John Ogu, Leon Balogun and Moses Simon are all a major doubts. American Jack Sock has won the Paris Masters after defeating Filip Krajinovic in 3 sets, 5-7, 6-4, 6-1. With the win, he also books his spot at the season-ending ATP Finals in London. Sock proved too tough an opponent for the Serbian qualifier, who had enjoyed a dream run into Sunday's final. Sock, the world number 22, will move into the world's top 10 for the first time in his career. He becomes the first American to feature in the season finale since Andy Roddick in 2003. Deontay Wilder has declared war on Anthony Joshua following devastating first-round knockout of Bermane Stiverne. The American charged through Bermane Stiverne in brutal fashion to retain his WBC heavyweight title in Brooklyn. He is now 39-0 with 38 points, knockouts that is. And Wilder now can set his sights on something he has been promising throughout 2017, unifying the heavyweight belts. And fresh from his triumph, the champion was adamant Joshua should be his next opponent rather than Dillian Whyte. Time now for our Sunday specials. The devastating effects of Boko Haram's brand of terror in Nigeria and its neighbors Cameroon, Niger Republic and Chad will remain indelible long after the group has been defeated. For now, the question Nigerians are asking is, when will the nefarious activities end? And TVC News Yobe State correspondent Michael Oshoma, who was recently on the war front with the Nigerian troops, filed in this Sunday special.
These are Nigerian troops from the 27th Task Force Brigade in Boniyadi, Yobe State, northeast Nigeria. One of their aim is to fight, kill, destroy properties belonging to the insurgents and restore lasting peace to remote communities in Yobe State and the northeastern part of the country at large. In the morning, after an address by one of their superior officers, the soldiers were directed to take the battle to Boko Haram fighters, whom they tagged enemies of the country. It's a well-known fact that the war against Boko Haram has been intensified and is yielding good results because of adequate supply of weaponry to officers and soldiers on the front line. As they advanced towards the enemy's camp, other combatants took strategic positions to target their prey. The battleground is located close to Boniyadi, where the Nigeria Armed Special Forces School and the headquarters of 27th Task Force Brigade are located. The Special Forces are well trained and they are ready to break down any barriers. Looking at the faces of officers and soldiers on the war front, you don't need a prophet to tell you that they are ready to die for their fatherland.
The most important thing, just like I mentioned earlier on, is their willingness to sacrifice further, their state of morale, which is extremely high, and they are itching to go back into operations to deal decisively with these criminals that call themselves Boko Haram terrorists.
At the theater of operations, before they embark on fighting the terror group, some form of exercises are given to them to loosen their muscles and put them in a tip-top shape. You turn about. The recent visit of the army chief was a veritable moral booster to the servicemen on ground.
What the terrorists will continue to do is to attack isolated locations and then take some areas that are isolated or very vulnerable places to embarrass everybody. This, we must stop it and ensure that we continue to push them out and clear them accordingly.
Ground attack helicopter provided close support to the surface troops' efforts. The role of traditional rulers cannot be underestimated in the fight against Boko Haram. This made the army chief to visit the emir of Damaturu. He charged him to talk to his subjects to give maximum cooperation to the army and other security agencies.
We assure you we'll continue to support you on all that we are supposed to do. That's why we draw the attention of the entire citizens to send the message through the hierarchy of the leadership, ranging from the Emirate Council, the district heads, the village heads, down to the ward heads, being the most closest authority to the masses. And we advise them to feel free in giving the useful advices, and we make sure that the information will reach and nothing bad will reach them. And then they cooperated, and alhamdulillah, we thank God for His mercy. And all the security operators in this dear state have attested to the efforts, support and cooperation of this Emirate Council.
Recently, these local vigilance group members stepped on landmines at an undisclosed village in Gujiba local government area. The attack left the vigilance team leader seriously injured. But what is the Nigerian army doing to effectively curb frequent Boko Haram ambushes?
The training on ambushes. I promise the nation that we are going to make special case for training because of the frequent ambushes that are happening in the theater of operation.
Despite the frantic effort of the military to degrade Boko Haram, some Yobe residents believe that some communities are not yet safe.
Most important to me now, the insurgency itself is not yet over. It's at our backyard here. The insurgency itself is not yet over. It's at our backyard here. Things are happening. People who are in Goneri really fear to go back to that place. Behind them, the issue of these young lads are still there.
In Potiskum, youth bear their minds on what prompted some young people to join Boko Haram.
Illiteracy is also another factor, but I believe corruption and unemployment are also issues that actually led to the emergence of terrorist group like Boko Haram. Because according to Herbert Spencer, who argued that frustration can actually lead to aggression. So when actually people are frustrated by the level of unemployment, illiteracy, there is no way actually for them to calm down, for us to seek for regress. They will think of actually taking law into their hand.
But there are separate opinions on why Boko Haram attacks may not end anytime soon.
You must provide the Nigerian people with the basic fundamental of survival. Employment, food, education, welfare. That must be done. It must be a key to survival. Once you do that, it is the people that will help in midwifing any project that you have for you to succeed. But where you do not do that, you are only is a recipe for corruption and more insurgency and acting for secession.
Nigerians shower encomium on the military and other security agencies fighting Boko Haram militants in the northeast. But one major question on their lips is, when will Boko Haram insurgency become history? Michael Oshoma, TVC News, Yobe State.
Well, I did not have an answer to that question, but let's go on a break and be back with more on the Sunday specials. Stay with us. Monguno, a local council headquarters northeast of Borno State capital Maiduguri, is trying to reinvent itself. Yet the odds appear to be against the garrison town, despite the activities of the Nigerian security forces working hard to keep the area safe. Cost of living is extremely high and small businesses are not having the best of times. In this special Sunday report, Defense correspondent Sifon Essien reports on the staple means of transportation.
Mangonu, a town filled with IDPs. It is home to several camps with an estimated 150,000 displaced persons who are largely from neighboring villages and towns. Ever since security forces recaptured the garrison town from insurgents 3 months after it was attacked in January 2015, efforts have been stepped up to improve access to the town by road. But there remain some security concerns. Life here, compared to that in the state capital, is difficult. The people's lives are hampered by a limited supply of food, shelter and other basic needs, which are largely ferried in by road. The basic means of transport here is a tricycle. Mustafa Abacha is a commercial tricyclist. He got the vehicle on a lease. He says he takes home between 500 to 700 naira per day after settling his boss.
At the end of every day, I am left with 500 to 700 naira after settling the owner of the tricycle. Much of the money I make during my pickup and drop-off is spent on fuel.
Passengers pay at least 500 naira to commute from one point to the other. But Abacha says all the money goes into buying petrol. A litre goes for 700 naira in the black markets. The filling stations are not working.
A litre of fuel sells for 700 naira. We buy from the black markets. The sellers travel as far as Maiduguri to get the products.
The commercial tricyclist gave us a ride round town. Of course, we had to pay for his services. The high cost of petrol translates into a high cost of living. And Abacha blames it on the activities of Boko Haram in the northeast of the country.
The activities of Boko Haram have made life very difficult for us. We are concerned.
Like Abacha, other small business operators keep at their businesses in the hope of a better life someday. Sifon Esien, TVC News, Mongunu.
Well, let's hope that they get a better life soon enough. A decade ago, mountains in Okeho, a small town in Oyo State, served as a fortress for many during Fulani and Dahomey intrusions. Today, the town is working hard to conserve their historic Rocky Mountains for future generations. Ugochi Oluibu visited the town.
Nature has blessed humanity with a beautiful habitat, conducive atmosphere, and a perfect ecosystem. This little town, Okeho, in Kajola local government area in Oyo State, right in the middle of many mountains, is endowed with beautifully carved rocks, valleys, trees, and caves with the right mix of rivers and streams, and of course, its iconic, very brown roofs are conspicuous. To discover more about this town, we spoke to the Onjo of Okeho.
When the Fulani jihadists, when they came to Yoruba land, Afonja, the Arona Kakanfo, them betrayed Alaafin. Our father, that's the father of the Yorubas, then they betrayed him. Afonja betrayed him, and Ilorin was captured. Ilorin was captured by the Fulani people. So then they started penetrating to the southwards of the Yoruba land. Then some of the Yoruba land was scattered. Then some people came from Ede, Ejigbo, with their baales. They came here and settled around this place. From Shaki, from Ilanagun, from Oyoro. They came from different places to settle around this place. Around this present Okeho, then around here. They came and settled, but they met that our forefather, that Ojon Rona, who came from Ilaro, they met him here.
Very important. The mountains are a great resource here. This farming community understands this and is ensuring it conserves the beautiful landscape as much as it can.
I have started one of the rocks, one of the mountains that get natural rooms inside. That during the Daomians and the Fulani war, our people, our forefathers, they said the place can occupy like 200 people at a time.
There is a particular, the one referred to as spring, on the rock, that it has no depth. They don't know the depth. It has a but they don't know. But that particular one is far up and it's not. You can't easily get to it.
It seems like the rocks are very important. We've seen the up there for fermenting cassava, and this one is for.
They used to sharpen the hoes and the cutlasses and knives. So they do this way, and it becomes sharpens.
Despite its seemingly strong rock formation, the town is threatened by gully erosion, making farming activities more difficult.
Now, this road is really important to this farming community because it links them all the way down to Benin Republic. And as you can see, the flood is really has to be very strong to be able to move heavy rocks and even the embankments all the way from up there to this place. And these stones here actually to let people know that there is danger here. You have to be careful. You shouldn't cross here. And one can only imagine what might happen in a few years if this is not checked.
It's early 90 to 91, 92. And there was a catastrophe here. There was a flood, terrible flood. So vehicles with passengers were flooded away.
We met these students at the palace. They have come to clean up the Onjo's home. They are also being taught the importance of conserving their mountains at a time when the world is losing its mountains and hills at a staggering rate, blown out of existence at the expense of infrastructure.
They cannot come to you and say you should take money, you should take this, because you are very small children. Face your studies very well. By grace will of God, you too you will become a very big and famous people in the Nile section.
The plan is to raise a generation of conservationists who will protect most of these beautiful landscape and someday turn this town into a tourist hub for the benefit of those who call this place home and by extension, Nigeria.
Do you know you have lots of mountains and hills here?
Yes.
You grew up with the hills. Do you love them? Tell me.
Yes.
Do you climb the mountains?
Yes.
Okay, so do you want them to disappear one day? You want someone to come and break them and take them away?
No.
Why?
Because they beautify our...
Wow, they beautify your environment.
Yes.
So you want the mountains to stay, you want the rocks and the hills to remain like that?
Yes.
Okay, so can you work hard to ensure that people, if someone gives you money and say, please take 1 million, let's blow up this thing. You don't want, you won't take the 1 million? Is 1 million too small? Thank you very much. So you can go now. Bye-bye. High five.
Thank you.
High five.
Ugochi Olibo, TVC News.
Well, yes, some children still love their environment, and, well, maybe 1 million is too small or not too much. Well, thanks a lot for being a part of the program. For more details, visit our website. It is tvcnews.tv, and join the conversation on all our social media platforms using @TVCNewsNG. Thanks for being a part of it. I am Esther Mopariola. Bye for now.